Today I have a well-known guy, Derrick Kinsey. He's the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. I've been looking forward to this all week. It's going to be a great discussion. He's going to be here in about 5 minutes. Boy, it's been a rough week, hasn't it?
It's been busy. There's been a lot of big things happen this week, yeah.
I don't know if it's just this time of year or the new economy or what, but it just seems like things are just booming.
Right. I think for us, you're getting ready for that end of year, which is big, and then you turn right around the first of the year and get it going again, and you're kind of starting raw. So, yeah.
Do you have to do an end-of-the-year report to anybody, like the main headquarters?
Yeah, yes, sir. We have it's an end-of-year, what they call a consulting time, where our regional service director, which is called a director of development, they come and meet with at least me and our board chair, which is Chuck Swafford. But a lot of times our safety manager will be there and anybody else on our executive team that, wants to be a part of that. And then we kind of measure the year and talk about the future. Yeah, it's a good time.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
Georgia.
I am from Georgia. Yeah, I'm from Calhoun, Georgia. Grew up there and left to venture into the real world of Tennessee when I joined Lee University. And it's been back when the ground was dirt.
When me and my cousin, my girlfriend and his girlfriend went to Calhoun, Georgia to see Hank Williams Jr.
Yeah, okay, so I lived not too far from the concerts.
Like how far?
Yeah, I was probably 5 miles from right there. In fact, right behind that center was they had a KOA, that center, and a bike track. And my friends, we'd always go and sneak on that bike track because it was really a motocross, and we'd bring our bikes out there and ride. It was fun.
We were leaving there. My cousin had an old truck, and I was about 16. Just barely 16, and he got stopped. The police pulled us over, and they took him in for drink, and he had not had a drop to drink, not a drop. And I had to drive his truck back from Calhoun, Georgia, and hadn't even been on the interstate before. In the middle of nowhere, I was embarrassed in front of these two girls, and and then I think he had to stay the night there.
Oh man!
And they eventually let him off because he just hadn't been, we never did drink,
Sure.
I guess they assumed we was in the beat up truck and that Hank Williams Jr.
Sure, yeah, and so I remember my friends and I, we'd go to church and we'd be a part of a youth group, and we would have a blast, right? We'd be in town being goofy and stuff, mm-hmm. And then you go back to school the next day and somebody say, yeah, I saw you guys must have been having fun last night. Were y'all drinking? Do y'all remember? We're like, yeah, you assume, but we remember what we did.
Yeah, right.
And it was fun. So, and you were, so I went to Redbud High School up until its last day in my sophomore year. So Redbud Road's where that concert place was, and I lived off Redbud Road, Newtown Road, but just off of Redbud, yeah.
Well, it was a great concert. We had a good time till we left. And then one other time, I had to take a guy to Marietta, Georgia, and I was coming back through, and I saw a sign that said Cleveland, and I turned off the interstate, and it was Cleveland, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the middle of nowhere, and would you believe I went through Calhoun and got stopped for speeding?
Calhoun's got
Had to
something
go
out
to the
for you.
police station, had to pay money before I could leave. That's my two experiences in Calhoun, Georgia. What was Calhoun a lot like Cleveland in the day?
Yeah, very, very similar, really, in town. Calhoun's kind of like a long straightaway, right? You can bypass it by the interstate, but go through town. I'll go home sometimes, just drive through to kind of reminisce and see it all, because I ended up graduating from Gordon Central area. You actually talk about tickets. So yesterday, I haven't been pulled over in forever. My mother's
Knock on wood.
84.
They come in threes.
I know it, they do. 84 years old yesterday. And so I took her to Blue Ridge to let her eat and hang out a little bit. And I got pulled over coming through Polk County. So yesterday,
which part?
They were very good to me. Coming up on where the facility, the Ocoee River facility that burned down.
Yeah.
I was literally right there. So
Was it state trooper?
and it was a sheriff from Polk County. He was good to me.
They
So
let you off or what?
he did. So thank you out there if you're out there in the city.
You couldn't have been going too fast.
I
right
didn't
through
realize
there,
I was,
because
but-
that's pretty winding road.
He said I was. It was before it was coming up the hill and then coming down that side before.
Yeah,
I
that's
go.
pretty.
There was actually a car in front of me pulling away from me, so he pulled over too. He didn't know if
He
he
didn't
got
know who he
him
got?
or he got me. Yeah. So, but when that guy said, "I think he's got him," he took off.
Did you tell him you was the CEO of Boys and Girls Club?
No. That would have been, he'd be like, "Here's your ticket, sir."
So, so you came to Lee like everybody else, I guess.
Yes, I graduated high school. If I'm going to date myself, in '87, I graduated Lee in '92. Yeah, graduated in business and music, and was trying to figure out what was going to be next for me. And it's funny how, and I'll say this for me, is like I didn't know what God had in store for me, right? I had all these ideas of what I wanted to do. I knew it was in music or business, and I've tried a lot of different things because I'm kind of a risk taker by nature in that regard, as long as it don't hurt me. And so, but the Boys and Girls Club, I stumbled into it. That's what's crazy, is it was never on my radar.
Describe how that came about. So you're 87. You're not much younger than me.
Yeah, so I'm 56. Yeah, 56. And so, so I started working right out of school. I worked at the bank.
Which one?
It was the BB&T location, but I didn't work in that location. I worked in where the data processing was in another building that was on
down
the
on
south
South Lee
of,
Highway. My brother worked there.
Yeah, so I did that. For
Was
a
you
while.
there when he was there?
I think so.
Okay.
I went in late at night to do the check processing. Yeah, so I did that, and then I worked at the club as just a basic
Just got
kind of a program staff, about 17 hours a week.
Just got a job there.
Yeah, in the after school.
Would
and
you
then-
apply for it?
Yeah, I worked as an assistant teacher for what was Blythe before it became Blythe Bauer. So I worked
You
at
were an
Blythe as an
assistant
assistant teacher. I worked at the bank. I worked at the club after that, and then I worked at the bank at night. So I was putting in some hours.
How come?
Need money, and I was trying to figure out what was next. And I've always believed that as the doors open, you kind of walk through.
About
it and
year,
see
what
it
year
goes.
was that?
92, 93. Actually, I started the club in February of '94. So this February will be 32 years.
You just applied for
32
the
years. That's crazy.
You just applied for the job.
I did. I went in. They had a program assistant for the afternoon, just a couple of hours, after school, and didn't really know a lot about it at that time. And I kind of just fell in love with. At that time, can I back up a little bit and kind of tell you? So my mother and dad had gotten a divorce when I was young, and my dad just started a new life. And there was a while there where there was a gap between communication. So I was, spent a lot of time with my mother, but she worked Shaw Industries, and it was like 12-hour shifts. And so she was gone a lot in the evenings when I wasn't home. So I was that kid that, you know, just kind of was out on his own. And since my sister was 7 years older and she had a life of her own, right? And so during that time, I remember the things I missed out on because either somebody wasn't challenging me, holding me accountable, or in my corner to cheer me on.
About what years?
So that was all from 80 to 87 was that whole middle school, high school time.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, there were some tough times in there. At the time, you know, it's what you know, right? That's all you know.
Yeah, it's
so
normal.
to me, I was fine. I made the best of everything I was in. But looking back on it, I was like, man, I spent all my days in the woods. You know, I was riding on my bike, fishing. I remember where now I couldn't even imagine hardly. We were talking about riding bikes earlier. I remember just one afternoon as like a 7th grader, you know, riding 23 miles all over places that I wouldn't want my kid to do now, right? So yeah, so all that kind of went into the motivation when I realized sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't know a lot about what the club would do for me. I was thinking about this being a stepping stone to what's next for, you know, something grand in my life. And then I started meeting kids who needed me. And then when I knew that they needed me, I found out I needed them. And that just kind of led to a relationship that I did not see coming. And yeah.
So you were there. So you were there for just working 17 hours a week.
Yes.
What was you doing? What was you?
So at that time, they were transitioning from all sports-related programming outside to having some internal structured programming times. And so I was kind of a guy that was, you know, fresh out of college with some energy, and they used to have relationship, you know, in classes. And I remember a lot of the stuff we just kind of created once we wrote a book. So we got a group of kids that would meet every week, and they would come up with the different characters, and we'd build the backstory, and then together we would just add to that book every time. So it was that kind of stuff. Sometimes it was just, you know, going out and playing. Sometimes it was, you know, an organized game. Sometimes it was made up off the cuff. And then that led into camping trips and doing more grander stuff. And then the club, if you've been watching from a distance, has evolved a lot in those 30 years.
Who was running it then?
So Mark Branch had just taken the reins just about a year or so before me. He was an out-of-towner, came in, and he's still working in the movement, but he's like in Indianapolis now. And he hired me. So I'll say he tolerated me. So that was some good times back then. At that time, you know, the Tucker unit was where we were at, and they had just opened a couple years before that, the Lay Street unit. So at that time, there was only 2 units.
Now, back, trying to think. I bought a cough button, but it hadn't come in yet. Max Everhart was on the board.
Yes, sir. I remember Max.
And he
Everhart.
wanted me to do a renovation there. And I can't remember, but I didn't even bid on it or nothing. But I can't remember was you there during that renovation?
Yes, so I'll back up a little bit. So in 1964, the club started in a funeral home. And then in 68, 69 was when they built the first building, right? And that was the Tucker unit, James H. Tucker unit. Around 2003 was when they really started doing other clubs. That was Cleveland State. Before that, I believe it was in the late 90s is when they did that renovation.
It had to have been the late 90s, early 2000s.
It was, because it was right around the time that Cleveland State started. And what they did was they took space off the field to make the teen center separate so that you had a place where high school students could go and spend a day and not be on top of the little kids, because that's an issue sometimes.
I used to go. I played pee wee football there.
Oh, yeah.
Played bumper pool. Remember going there on Saturdays.
Yeah, when I started, we did the Optimus Bowl and at Bradley and a lot of times, and then there was a lot of the sports from travel teams and softball and baseball.
Did you just get on the? When did you go to from 17 hours to more?
I received a promotion after my first year and a half, where they were trying to decide if they were going to have a full-time education director. And that was because the director at that time was trying to shift from, he wanted to have both, the same outside presence that we were known for, but he also wanted to have a space where we could actually focus on how can we extend the school day for kids who need it, right? And so he hired me to do that before I moved into a full-time program director, which meant I led all the programs that were taking place. And the transition then was tough because before that, and this isn't a bad thing, I think there's a time where some people are like, okay, just total freedom is wonderful. And back then it was, you know, we've always believed kids vote with their feet, but at that time there was very little structure. So it was, how do we go for getting kids into your room? So instead of a rotation, what would happen is you would have a program and you may say, hey, we're going to do this movie making class or photos or something you were interested in. And you'd just tell them when it was, and they could come if they wanted to come, not come if they wanted to. And so you were having to work really hard to sell your idea so they would come, right? It was hard to build depth on that because you had a different face every time you did it, because it was more like a community center.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
right. That's
you know,
what my experience was.
Yeah, so, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we in trying to be intentional over the years have tried to be a place now, what it's evolved to now, regardless of how I got there, is there's a lot of parents that need that place for their kid to go, feel safe. They know that they can count on the routine. They can drop them off, or the school bus will take them. They can stay until 7:30, and then the parent will pick them up, and they've gotten, you know, food, homework help, all these different programs, you know, extracurricular activities, performing arts. They could be on a sports team. They could be on a STEM team. So there's all these things that they can do. And then now what happens is when you're really young, you have the most structure. You know, you basically have a group you're going to all the time. You know what that schedule is. As you get older, you have more big deal programs, and they're scheduled at certain slots, and other times are more left for a kid to be a kid, right? So,
You know, it's interesting you say that, because that's the feeling I got when I was there. I was Pee-wee football, but I didn't know when the seasons were, and there were people there playing basketball, but I didn't know if you could play basketball, and people playing bumper pool. It was just mostly just a free-for-all, the whole thing. The only ones that knew what was going on was the parents that paid attention.
boy, it was fun too, wasn't it?
yeah, but you did, for somebody like me, I'm more into structure. So I'm not, so to me, you know, it's funny you said, what'd you say, not consistency, but structured.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Have you ever heard that kids do better when they're in a home that's more consistent? That's as important as a good home.
You know, it's interesting because, like, you can witness, and we see it all the time. If you ask, you know, we want our kids to have a voice in our program because they know what they enjoy doing, and there's a space for you giving them that option to say, hey, do you want, you know, you want to go do this or play this, or do you want us to start a program around this topic? But if you were to ask a kid if they wanted free time or this structured moment, they're always going to lean towards the free time, right? But their behaviors and desires and games and fun and the things that they build on happened in the area in the structured part.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know that as a kid that seems like you're trying
Right,
to stifle
right.
my fun.
Yeah.
And in truth is, it controls the environment in a way so you can be more productive and they can feel more safe and they can get more done and accomplished. And then the game's fun because I'm not being bullied by the person who wants to win that's bigger than me.
That's what I'm saying. Because you don't know how to not do that.
Yeah.
You don't know how to get involved when you're that age. You're almost shy.
Yeah, well,
You're
you
asking
are.
a shy person to be social, you know.
Well, and you got to think, okay, speaking on the social, part of, I think, the place that makes a place like Boys and Girls Club, I wouldn't say we're the only solution out there, but we are one, right? And what I'm getting at is you think in this day and age where the phone has become very important to all of us. We can be real productive, we can get things done quick, we can be organized, we can connect with people really fast. What it's also caused is an anxious generation. And there's books about that, actually one called The Anxious Generation. It's the idea that that it's put this extra stress that we didn't have on us when we were a child because we had more room to be a kid and there was this human interaction between people that is, you know, stress relieving, even though some relationships are tough. What society has driven us towards is more of a seclusion or me and my phone will be connected to you and your phone instead of me and you being friends. And so the club offers a location where you can put that thing down and the world's still going to be there when you pick it back up and you can be a friend and you can have fun and you can be stress relieved and you can be disc and unplugged for that moment. At the same time, we have certain times that you could use your devices or use computers to help you do what you got to do in life. And we're doing this podcast that takes technology, right? So we have those kind of things set in place too. So kind of out both sides of our mouth, but we're trying to control when and where so that it's not taxing on their spirit.
Word I was thinking was, you said routine.
Yes, sir.
Routine is a little bit different than structure, because a routine, like if they get off the bus after school, what's the thing they do?
We're thinking about routine, and then I'll answer that question, is job satisfaction comes when you know what's expected, right?
Absolutely.
With a kid, when they know what's expected, then they function better, right? They know that there's this safety in knowing Dee's always going to be there at this time, and he's going to smile and greet me, and we're going to have this connection, and I'm going to have that opportunity. That is a safe place for me to know that happens here. And then after I'm CD, I get to eat something. So if I'm hungry right now, I don't stress about it because I know in a little bit I'm going to get some food, because a lot of our kids are missing out on that, you know. So that's the reason I think routine is important. So if a kid comes to our clubs, so right now there's several schoolhouses, clubs, we call them units, in all 6 of the counties that we serve. And they may be a little different based on that particular unit and how kids arrive. Because like in Bradley County, we have 11 buses that go out into the community and pick up kids. And some of our other communities, like Monroe County or Polk County, those kids are dropped off at those units. So they may get there a little earlier compared. But when they get to the club, they're greeted by a friendly face and a relationship that they can feel safe with. We don't want it to be school. We value school, and we want the school to value us, but we need them to have a home. And if they're not going home yet, we want to kind of play that role.
It doesn't need to seem like they're being punished because they can't go home yet.
Right.
They need to, school's out.
Yeah. So
this is extra. This is good. Or,
somebody said one time, you know, you have disadvantaged youth. And I was like, you know, I'd like to flip that. We're giving advantages to kids that I went home and was by myself back in the day. Look at what these kids have at their disposal.
The routine,
all day.
the structured routine.
Well, the structured routine, but it's not just that. It's the things that they're going to in each one of those classrooms, because they're having opportunities to learn games, to learn skill, to go to a clinic, to go to a camp, to learn performing arts.
Did you mention homework?
We help with homework every day. Our program's called Power Hour, and it's just a time to where we can pull out what their assignments are, and they can have a time to do that. And we try to not spend all day but we specialize on focusing on that time and giving them a set time. However, if a student is just struggling and way behind, we have a space for them too, so they can jump out of that routine and jump into a place where they can have somebody go deeper.
How would you know if they're say they can't quite get division, or not division, but what's that? No, that other thing.
Yeah, I get your point. So if there's something about even fractions,
that's what I meant,
or something. So we used programs like Clever Craze now. We've used a program called Stride Academy, and it was a way that we could measure for grant-related purposes so that we could have the resources to reach more kids. So it's like it opens up the opportunity for us to do that because we can't do anything without funding. So we're trying to think of ways that it can be a win-win, that it can help with the grant, it can help with the kid. And so we would use things like Stride Academy. Stride Academy, you could literally look and it would say how everybody's games, when they're answering these questions, they can get tokens and things so they can continue playing the fun stuff, but how they answer their questions. And it gives them the ability to stay on, if they're in 5th grade, but they're working on a third grade level, or vice versa, they're working on a 7th grade level, it'll go based on what they can do so they don't feel weird about it among their peers. And it'll also give us a report that says, we have a bunch of kids that's battling with language usage. And so we can actually turn our system on to focus on fractions and language usage, so we can actually.
Is there a person there that, say you're in school and you're just having a hard time with this fractions, and you're afraid to ask the teacher, and the class seems like they're moving ahead of you? Is there somebody in that after school thing that you can say, hey, what do they mean by turning this fraction upside down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it goes further than education. Part of it is the relationship. Because if you know that I feel trust around you, I'm going to go to you to ask you about construction.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. Is there that person?
There's a lot of those persons.
Okay.
And that's part of it. And think about this. If you had a school teacher and they've got them for the 5th grade, they're spending 95% of their time focused on the education, trying to get them to that next 6th grade.
Yeah.
So that purpose is there for that purpose, right? That's what we need them to do. You have those great teachers that have incredible relationships with those kids, and that's why they got into it, because they felt the purpose of helping a kid and giving back. So now, could you imagine if you knew Johnny and you only had him that 5th grade year, and every now and then you catch him in the hallway and just say, man, how you been? Because I had you in 2 years.
Yeah.
And you've moved on to new faces. The thing I think that helps with Boys and Girls Club is we had Johnny when he was 5 and 6 years old, and we're celebrating Johnny when he's graduating high school, and we had Johnny every day between. And so the trust and relationships happen in such a deep way. We try to create environments where they feel so comfortable that they will say, man, I'm stinking here, or I'm struggling here, or I'm mad at them, or I'm going to, so it's more like true life-changing skill things, because like if a kid wants to fight somebody, you have the ability to go to them and explain a bigger picture, like, than you can at school, because it's got to be more black and white, right? Because we got to move to the next thing real quick. And so we're afforded an environment that helps with relationships. Does that help? So that kind of helps we use routine as a tool. We use youth development professionals as a tool, but we also use those deep relationships that are over time, that only happen over time, to win a kid's heart so that we can encourage them to the next level, because we want our kids to go to college, vocational or trade school, or the military, or all the above. We want them to get to something greater. And I'd say Boys and Girls Club in the past, we did a poor job at that. We had a great time when we had them, and we did all these fun things, but we didn't really guide them into the next step, and we just kind
I
of let
think
them
that
go.
was when I went. It was not a routine, structured thing. It was just a place you could go for a while, even on Saturday mornings.
You know, and I think there's a place for that.
Sure, it's better
there's
than
no
nothing.
stress there.
It's better than
Oh,
nothing.
yeah. Again, he had you doing something.
Yeah.
Somebody told me once, you keep a kid busy or they'll keep you busy. And so I think part of that is like we're trying now, the magic word is intentionality. We're just trying to be more intentional. If I've got an audience that is going to be in front of us, whether they come on their own or their parents make them come, what do we want to change? What's going to be better because we have their attention and their focused attention?
I was in there one day, and all of a sudden the buses start letting people off. And some of them went into this room, and then some of the older kids went to a sort of like a living room sort of area. And then after a little bit, everybody came and got a brown paper sack of food.
But as part of that routine,
it was almost like they knew where this was going. It was like third shift or something. But what was they getting in the bags?
it's food. You know, they have different. We give a snack every day, and then we give a dinner every
So-
day.
so
And in the
explain.
summer, it's a breakfast, lunch, and snack.
So let's say the snack. It's 3:30. You're getting off the bus there, and so they get a bag of a snack.
Yeah, so they might get a juice and a particular cheese stick, beef stick, something when they first get there to kind of tie them over to when the meal's served, and then they'll get a super snack bag, what I would call. It's got more in it. It could be a burrito. It could be
What time
could be
would
a
that be?
sandwich. It's usually different based on the unit, but usually that 3 to 4 is the snack time, and 5 to 6:30 sometime that slot would be
So
more
will
of
they
a
take
dinner.
that home with them?
They can. Most of the time they eat it at the club because most of the time you want the food that's put in front of you. Yeah, and so
So who provides that?
we're a part of the CACFP program. It's a statewide kind of a reimbursement program, and then we can decide based on if we're using a JA Foods or Champions Food, or we're using somebody local, or even Bradley County Schools sometimes in the summer for whatever we're serving.
But who coordinates getting it there?
So every one of we're in 6 counties,
Yeah.
right? And then we have 7 sites in Bradley plus a workforce center. We
Man.
have 2 sites in Copper Hill and Polk County, and we have a summer camp or a Camp Fletcher. We have our nicest clubs in Decatur, and it's our newest building. We have 5 in Monroe County. Our second largest is in Madisonville. Our furthest away is Von Orr. We have 2 in Ray County. We just opened
So you have one in
housing.
Von Orr?
We have one in Von Orr, and then we
God.
have one in McMinn, and we're looking at Athens, but we're in Etowah right now. So every one of those leaders of those sites has a unit director, kind of like a principal to a school, and then they have teachers. And then some of our sites are what we call traditional sites, which are our facilities. We own that asset. That is something that they have that's separate from a school. We have several school-based sites. We have a couple of church-based sites. We have a couple of housing authority-based sites, and we have a college campus site. So they all have the same mission, but some different personalities.
Sure.
And so every one of those directors at those, so we have 150 staff. So paid staff. And so every one of those directors, they will run those, and they're in charge of hiring, firing, program
They're like
development, their buses. We have about,
That's a big job isn't it?
it is, we have about 400 kids signed up to ride our buses every day just in Bradley County. And we're having to, so yeah, to paint that picture a little bit. So we have members. You become a member to the club. We have approximately 3,500 members every year. And members are people who come regularly. So we run about 1,100 kids a day, so at our centers. And then we served, which are people also that we do special events for outside of being a member, and we served 16,000 last year. So if that 16,000, 3,400 members, 1,100 a day, and then all these special activities that go, we were talking about being intentional earlier, like with teens. So every last week in April, we do the Elevate Leadership Conference. So we have about 300 high school students that go away for 3 days, and we have a big conference. It's probably the largest locally Boys and Girls Club related conference in the country. And so now in the Southeast, they come from Florida, Memphis, North Carolina, Alabama, you name it, Georgia, and they come and we host that every year. So we just started a middle school one. So it's called Next, and it's only a day because it's middle schoolers. Don't think 3 days in the woods is great for that. But so that happens. And then at Christmas, there's a big community Christmas event. You've probably seen it because they closed down all the south side by Bradley High School.
Yeah, but they give away turkey dinners and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's turkey, ham, and then so just like this last year, they put up 40,000 lights. They closed 3rd Street all the way down to Bradley. They opened 3 parking lots and treated it like Dollywood. So you'd go to that parking lot and a hayride would pick you up.
Oh, I see.
Serve you hot chocolate, take you to the line, then you would go through, and usually about 1,600 people go through that, and about 200 people work it. And so a lot of churches and schools come and work, and nonprofits. And
But what? Going back to that snack and the dinner.
Yes, sir.
So you have at this, like the Cleveland Center, you have somebody that puts all this in 2 bags, one for snack and one for dinner.
Yeah, so at the beginning of each day, they just prepare for what they think they're going to have in
Who are
numbers. They're unit director and program staff.
And so where do they get the food? They purchase it and it's delivered like a...
All right, so this may help. And I hope this ain't boring, everybody, but we're in 6 counties. So every 2 counties has an area director. So Britt DeBusk is over all things Bradley County and all things Ray County. Jonathan Pierce is over all things Monroe County and McMinn County. Tiffany Harris is over all things Meigs County and Polk County. So they serve nearly like executive directors for those counties. So they're in charge of transportation, food for their counties, and there might be one person on our staff team that handles all food purchases. Britt's usually done that in the past. So the transfer truck may bring it to our place and we'll store it, and then each area director will arrange getting that to their counties.
But they've got it in there.
They've got it.
So do volunteers put it in these bags?
We thrive on volunteers, a lot of staff and volunteers, but probably mostly a lot of our staff are organizing it before we get there, and we try to use our volunteers for more helping with homework assistance. Because, if we have more bodies in the room that help with coaching and stuff, then the staff is left to kind of guide the ship and make sure he can put out any fires and answer questions, while some of the volunteers can help. Even when we do the big Christmas thing I was talking about. So they'll wait in line all day. They'll come and get in come over to get on the hayride, come, and they'll go through this 2.5 hour experience, and then they'll move on. Well, you align all those volunteers, but the staff are kind of organizing all the things that they need. Even feeding the volunteers while they're there.
Yeah, you got that too.
Or making sure that they're swapping out, because this volunteer can only stay 30 minutes and this one can be there 5 hours.
This one didn't even show up.
Yeah, and so you're trying to go and coordinate all that. And so our staff are really good about that. So
Do you think a lot of these kids they get their parents pick them up at 6 or 6:30 or something?
we used to close at 9:30, and I would take a bus ride home to take them home on a school night, and I would get off about 11 o'clock. That was normal for years. We actually made a decision to cap it at like 7:30. That way we were kind of pushing kids back into the family setting, and it wasn't. Most parents are wonderful people, but you have a couple people that would take advantage of that.
Oh, I see. So even if it wouldn't be that they might not could, it's just that you're doing it so they'll let you.
I
sort of thing.
remember
Yeah.
taking kids at 9:30 and on the bus, on a van or whatever at 11 p.m. and can't find the parents.
Oh Lord, man!
And so that was a hard time. So we have incredible parents, and I think what's amazing is because going back to your structure and routine, now they know what to expect and they know the level. The professionalism is at a certain level that I think now it's kind of like expected. Positive peer pressure is a thing.
It is. It never ends.
Yeah, because if you think about if you're in an environment where fighting happens occasionally, then it's like the broken window effect. It'll happen again. But if you're in an environment where that doesn't happen and and everything's good's happening because good things are happening and you're rewarding incentives to good behavior, then all of a sudden that goes away and good behavior becomes a culture. So it's all culture. Whether we have good staff, good board members, great kids, great parents, it's a culture that's being set that says, this is who we are. This is how we're going to expect you to behave in the role that you play. This is why it matters, right? And so...
How do you afford these dinners?
Well,
that's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, so the meals are important because it's kind of like that pyramid of needs. If you're hungry, you're not thinking about education, right?
No.
So that's important for that reason. So we had a staff a couple years ago. I worked in the Cleveland Housing Authority at that site. I worked there for 8 years. Probably some of my favorite stories come out of my time working over there. But she was very adamant about kids that didn't have food, and so we were trying to do that on our own, even if it started with free snack cakes, just to have something on your belly. Well, that just led to really investigating all the opportunities. And so the state now, witnessing that, started a program that a lot of schools and out-of-school time organizations can benefit from, and it's like a reimbursement. They basically give you, $2 or so a meal, and then you have to try to go, how many meals can I get? If I'm feeding 1,000 kids a day or 1,100 kids a day, what is that going to cost me? And then you're managing. It's like a side business.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like a restaurant.
It is.
You're trying to run a restaurant. Even though you're getting reimbursed for it, you got other expenses that are related to doing it.
Even in the summer when we're benefiting from like Bradley County, Bradley County Cleveland Services, their food program, when they're, each one of the directors has to call in and I say, I need 55 for tomorrow, or I need 42 for tomorrow, or I need 157 or 300. Then they're taking an estimate based on what that day normally has and based on what we had today and how many I had left over, or if I need to replenish something that I didn't have. So, it takes being alert and savvy. We try to do a lot of leadership training because the Boys and Girls Club is not what it was in the past. It takes a lot of mental capacity, and it's stressful at times because it's a lot to keep spinning.
Do you think 40 years ago, what were these kids eating? How were they getting home?
Yeah.
Or maybe not 40, maybe 60 years ago. What was there? Did the churches do it? Did they go hungry? What happened?
Well, I think a little bit of all the above. We've got a wonderful community here, and when people are aware of stuff, they always step up. They never fail us in that. I think churches step up when they know. I think a lot of programs were birthed out of a need, right? They saw something in need. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people went home hungry. And I think that caused people to be passionate about filling the gap. I mean, the money that Boys and Girls Clubs receives from donors is because a donor witnessed something that was like, not on my clock.
That's right.
I don't want that to ever happen we started the MEGS unit. Literally, this is crazy, and talking about food. So the MEGS unit in Decatur, like what is it, the one county out of 95 that doesn't have a railroad track. So they're a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Clubs of America always wanted you to have clubs in like big inner cities where there's a high population and they can keep things going. A lot of money can be raised in bigger locations. When you're in small ponds with very, rural communities, there's less money to be generated. So it's not a great business model. But the need is there, and the calling was there. And I remember a gentleman was at his pond one time in Meigs County, and he said these kids had snuck on the property, and they were fishing. And he said he went over to them and was asking the question. He says, y'all get to go back to school soon? He was waiting for boos and hisses. And he said, are y'all, what y'all thinking about that? And they talked about being excited about it. And he said, being excited? I figured I'd get some boos and hisses. Why are you excited? And the kid said, man, we get to eat. We get to eat at lunch. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. And he said that just stuck with him. And then months went by, and he stumbled on one of our fundraisers and just listened, stood there in the back corner with his overalls on. You wouldn't have suspected that he had the ability to do a ton. And can't read a book by its cover. He finally approached us and said, I want a club in Meigs, and I want it now. He said, I don't want kids to go like this, and I've been, watching you guys for a while from a distance, and basically as an audition to see if y'all were worthy to carry this torch of mine, And so that led to now Decatur has 4-acre with a bike track. They host a Southeast Bike Summit every July on that same property. It has 8,400 square foot. Was a Dollar General that they totally revamped. Got playgrounds and basketball courts. They got an outdoor concert stage. They've done bluegrass festival there. And all that happened because of a gentleman talking to a kid who snuck onto his pond.
It had just happened to ask him the right question, too. Could even,
So they're out there. There's people that want to make a difference. And, when
I can't imagine kids not having something to eat. I just cannot. The general public cannot hardly think about that as a possibility.
Yeah, and as much as I like food, it's hard to think that any one meal that I choose to miss is hard. Right?
You're not going to know which ones are like that, are you?
I used to. So when we were smaller, we were at the Tucker unit on 3rd Street. The ballpark curve's famous for the boys' club days, and then we had the one off of Lay Street, which turned into the Powers unit, which is a housing authority site. And I worked there for 8 years, and during that time, I met a lot of kids with some great needs. Being in the housing authority, they would find their way, and our whole mission is to serve those kids who need us the most. And I remember having to take these kids home, and I'd have to leave early because the homeless shelter closed their doors at 8, and we were taking them from the club to the homeless shelter. And then one time, the dad wasn't allowed to interact with the kids, and he was chasing the van.
Oh, Lord.
And we had kids like laying down on the van, trying to lose them on back roads, and just crazy times, man. You're thinking that kid went through that. You're thinking, my dad can't see me, but in a kid's heart, they long to be with their dad.
Oh, absolutely. No matter
And then
what.
I'm going-
no matter what.
So I'm escaping my dad
Yeah.
to go to the homeless shelter. So, and it's sad too to think that our communities, as well off as Cleveland is, or even Monroe County or Ray County, that we have those dire needs still, right? And that's blows my mind.
The Boys and Girls Club is almost the place where you find the situations. Where else could you find out that there's a situation? I guess you could in maybe school, but a lot of times the teachers aren't going to know, are they? You ever get calls from the school saying, hey, this one needs help?
Oh, all the time. In fact, I remember having 5 teachers that would call me daily with the homework assignments because they didn't feel like in that particular family unit, the leadership in that family wasn't handling it. So they couldn't tell that family member because nothing changed, and so they.
Well, don't you appreciate those calls?
Oh, I love my relationships with the teachers too at the school because you know they care. They're doing that all day, every day, you know, to make sure that they get their homework done, and they don't want to see them fail. They're trying to set them up for success.
I guess they get more of a personal connection with them than y'all will because they're there all day. Maybe.
Well, not necessarily. I would flip that a little bit because we would have them like that one-on-one for the rest of their school-age childhood, right? So that's why teachers did call us, because they knew that we had that kid all the time. So anytime they were outside the classroom, they were in our care about the same time, but where they may have them for the year, we have them the whole time. So if I'm working at a club for 8 years, those kids are deep with me by that 8 years, right? I mean, because they were in every decision I made, and everything I planned for was around their worlds and what they needed. I mean, there's some crazy stories out there that I'll leave off a camera that would just shake your at your core, because you had to witness that. I'll tell you a funny one. I remember going one time to had to take a kid home because couldn't find parents, and we went to a trailer that had stuff nearly up over the windows, and I remember the young lady said, "Well, you can't leave me here because the crazy lady's inside." And I was like, "No, I got a personal life. I need to go and try to figure this out before we call the police." And I go to the door, and when I get to the door, it's one of those old-timey, like, triangle windows. Yeah. And so I walk up, and when I get to the front, she wasn't lying. There was a padlock on the door to get out. So if the trailer goes up, whoever's in that thing's not going to be healthy. So, but I was like, there's a lock on the door, and then I knock on it, and then all of a sudden it was like The Shining. I said, "Here's Johnny." When he came through the thing, I saw a face go to the window, and they were like, "Do you have a cigarette?" I was like, "No, ma'am." I said, "I'm here. You know, somebody is needing to be picked up. I can't find, and it's late." And they were like, "Oh, okay. Well, go around back." This is no joke. You would think I made this up. Go around back, and there's a board holding the back door locked. Open that up, and then push your inside real fast, and I promise not to get out. And I said, "Thank you." And then we called the police. So, so there's some weird stuff sometimes that happens. Now, listen, the culture is still, you think about now, the club is such a safe place for kids to go, right?
Yeah.
And over time, it has evolved into this thing where if you want a place where your kids are going to be safe, it's one of the best places around to give you a place that actually encourages them, challenges them to do more with their life. So, if you're in a room full of smart people, the Bible says, you walk with the wise and you will grow wise, right? And we try to create that environment so that if there's a kid like that has that extreme situation, which is rare, then they're witnessing an environment that encourages them to be a part of it in a safe way, but they're seeing success. Somebody told me one time, that's what success looks like. I heard a coach doing that one time. I sat and watched him from the bleachers, and he was managing this track team. And every time somebody would do something good, he'd go, "That's what success looks like." Or, "That ain't what success looks like. That's what a champion looks like." And he said, we had him speak at one of our teen leadership conferences I was telling you about earlier at high school. And he did a whole kind of episode and a session on what a champion looks like. And the whole point was, it's hard to mimic something you never see. And if you're in a home that doesn't have a lot of successes and wins and organization and neatness, then it's hard to see that unless somebody else is showing you what that looks like, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to show kids what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. It's interesting to me how wrapped up people can get in helping the Boys and Girls Club. For instance, Steve Hickson, he has, remember that song by Rod Stewart, Passion?
He's got it.
He's got it for that. I mean, it is unbelievable. And you know, I was with you Friday, and all of a sudden Dan Howe pulls up. Best I can tell, he was not there for a reason, just to help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't like say, "Oh, here's that thing."
Right. Okay, so for me, when I started and when I realized that I wasn't getting away from the club, right, it grabbed my leg and held on, and then I realized how emotionally, how much purpose was there, right? I mean, sometimes we look at life and go, is it just about work? Is it just about, you know, making money? What is it? What's next? I was asking that question this morning. What's next? Well, purpose comes when you know that you're making a difference and and also when you're a part of something that's bigger than you. I think sometimes the Purpose Driven Life book starts with the first line just kills you because you're thinking, all right, what's this book about? And
Right.
the first line says, it's not about you. Mm-hmm. That's the first line. And you're like, man, you can close the book. It's done. It's a great book. That whole idea is when I didn't have a lot when I was growing up and I didn't have the means to get any of the things that I wanted or needed or dreamed about. And I'm thinking now, all the things that we can do with purpose, like education, college, and all the things to get you to being a successful adult. Then there's the other side of that. The things that is harder to measure, but how much fun it'd be to be a kid and have an environment that's safe. And if you're thinking, if I had the resources, and I always wanted a treehouse when I was little, why can't I build tree houses? Why can't I have a treehouse city that has rope bridges and the kids can go and dream and pretend like they're on a fort and they can have an overnight and there'll be 2 or 3 in each cabin that can be there and there'll be a staff there watching it, making sure it's safe and everything. And they're learning from that environment. They're building memories, a storybook childhood, right? So now it's like, it's kind of like, you know, when you think of certain movies, like, and this is crazy and it's not the same, but you know Schindler's List. What happened is when he started with one motivation, he ended with another, right? And I want to help more, and it's not enough. It's on a totally different scale, because I'm not comparing those two things by any means, but that same idea is now, if I'm a part of it before I'm gone, what am I going to be able to do that's going to create these environments that are special and that create that? And so now people like Steve and Dan and a million more have gone, hey, I can be a part of that too. It's bigger than him, it's bigger than Derrick, it's bigger than me, but I can offer a piece of the pie and watch an environment be created so these kids will have a cool place and the parents will know their kids are safe and gaining crazy awesome experiences. So in Copper Basin right now, we're going to bid. Whew, finally, we've been waiting for about 1.5 years to go to bid, and we're going to be building this 25 to 30,000 square foot facility. Now, you think about what people remember us when they just hear Boys Club. Oh, it's Boys Club. Let's go. You throw a ball in the gym, you go play. And we're going, no. There's going to be a building that's going to be 3 stories with an outside fire pit and a big, deck for an event. You're going to have a slide, so when the kids are called home and the parents go, Johnny's here, all right, Johnny's time to go, the slide's how you get out to the bottom of the building, right? And you're going to have that in a place like Copper Basin, which unfortunately has had a bunch of, or several, either suicide cases or substance abuse or pregnancy rates, right?
They had something here just a couple of weeks ago.
And it's, so you're trying to create an environment so you say you can have more than that, You can have a home with a white picket fence and a dog and 2 cars, strive for that. You can go to Harvard. You can go to Vanderbilt. You can do all these things. Go to University of Tennessee or Lee, Cleveland State. Back in the, there's a time when that didn't feel tangible. So now if you're going, okay, you're doing that in Copper Basin, we just got a building and renovated in Ray County. Now Chattanooga State's offering us, and the city in Ray County is offering us that whole college. So if you remember that whole downstairs Chattanooga State, that's going to be the club starting January 1st.
How can you manage all this stuff? I'm just appalled at how you can manage all that.
I can't.
I mean, this has got to be better. You got to be.
I can't.
I mean, you're like the CEO of a Chipotle or Starbucks or something. Did you have any management?
No, in fact, I was, sometimes I think God uses the weak to do something great just to prove that he did it and you didn't have anything to do with it. I think, to me, if you were to look at my resume, it would have not have been your choice. I would have not been your choice.
What?
Which is funny and I think that's with a lot of things.
Well, let's look into it deeper. Did you work in high school anywhere?
Yeah, but I mean, I remember working at Arby's, and my boss coming because I put my name instead of Derrick. I had womanizer on it, and he was like, he laughed, said, "That's really funny. You probably should have put that on your name." I was like, "What about my buddy? It says ladies' man."
What would your dad do?
My dad drove truck. Yeah, he drove
So
truck.
where do you think the
But
man?
my dad wasn't around much when I was growing up, so we didn't talk. I think I enjoy, maybe I have ADHD, I don't know. I enjoyed like a lot of things, like going, and it's kind of like a project manager. You do that well, right? You're always being organized, and it feels good to be productive and organized. So we use a program at work called Basecamp, and it basically is a very small scale project management software. But what it does is allow it to be not personal, sorry, and you can assign tasks to anybody. It don't matter if they're above you, below you, volunteer. And then, so if you're working on a project, so we just have a lot of projects spanning. I mean, there's a lot of projects spanning.
That's what I know.
We've got 5 acres in Vonore that they are right now getting ready to create blueprints for a teen center and a club, mainly because our Monroe Teen Center has been outgrown. So they're running crazy kid numbers that are really more than they're supposed to have in this building. And it's like a mobile unit. So we're trying to figure out how we raise money for that building, right? Because that's not going to be cheap. We got this farm now, and that farm's going to be great for getting kids outdoors and kind of get them away from the things that, that they may not have access to. Now they have access to. And we're building a pond, right? And that pond's going to be 3.5 acres, pretty large pond with fish in it. They're going to get to go fishing.
And now you got to get the money for that.
Got to get money for that.
But let me ask you this: how did you end up coming to Lee? I mean, was you a Church of God or religious based?
I did come from a Church of God, and I came up for a Lee day. But at that time, I didn't swim or drive. I didn't have my own car anyway. And I came up with a friend and went to a Lee day. And then I went to school at Lee and was on the 5-year plan and just learned a ton when I was there. I remember not having a lot. I remember being a part of campus choir, and I couldn't go on a tour with the choir because I didn't have the money to go on a tour, and I wasn't going to tell my mom. And then somebody bought me my shirts, and they bought me my suit. And I remember that, and I didn't know who did it. But now I get a chance to do that too.
When you say the purpose-driven life, I've read that book. I enjoyed the book. But I use the word the why. There was no philosopher that said, give a man the why and he'll figure out the how.
It's good.
So that's sort of the same thing. So do you remember when you said, hey, this is where I'm going to start working? I mean, was there a moment?
It was a time. It was a process. Like there was a time when I started working there, or even working period, but me always putting some far-fetched dream out there, and then this, however I ended up where I'm at, kind of just happen. You're just asked about the why, and then you figure out the how. I think for me, I didn't want to be. So my mom, she was a single mom, and she was afraid of everything. We make fun now in a fun way. I was with her yesterday. She was afraid of something, and we made fun of it because she's always had this little cloud of comical fear. And so through that, I thought, I never want to be that. Fear will destroy every dream because you'll talk yourself out of it. If you're playing football and you're the quarterback, you're taught to talk to yourself and don't listen to yourself. Because you listen to yourself, you talk yourself out, or you talk about all the things that could go wrong. But if you talk to yourself, you can talk it into a direction of a possibility of hope.
Yeah.
So for me, I just started believing, and maybe I was ignorant enough to believe in some ridiculous stuff. But then when it happens, and you're going, hey, man, that happened. And I remember one of my first things was Charlie was my mentor and kind of like my second dad and my older brother all in one. And Charlie Sutton, and he ran the club for a long time. Charlie finally said, all right, he kind of navigated all the big decisions. But one time he said, I want you keep mentioning this fence around our back field. I want you to try to figure it out. There ain't no money for it. Go. And I remember talking to different groups and talking to different individuals and getting some guys generated, wanting to help because they didn't want to be in the building. Long story short, the fence got built, the money showed up, and it was like pushing a snowball. And then when they saw that it was bigger than you, people in the community would just come and just jump in and start pushing with you. So the bad that happened, if you want to call it bad, was it created a believer out of me. Because now I'm not as afraid to jump off a cliff to push something ridiculous because, hey, it might just work. And the outcome of it working beats the trade-off of me not trying.
Yeah, it's a whole lot worse feeling.
And so now it's kind of like we dream a lot. We have a board right now that's just this dream vision board, and it's pretty ridiculous. We never had an endowment before. What happens when our $5 million a year organization can't pay the bill or not have the money
Feed the
next
elephant.
year? Right? And you think about it. I mean, there's organizations in neighboring counties that are around the same size as us, some smaller than us by a long shot, that their budgets are 3 times ours. Or, so we've gotten good with refrigerator magnets and brake lights and paper clips and duct tape.
What made you think that you could go to Lee College? It was expensive at that time, wasn't it?
Well, we didn't have a lot, and that actually helped because I got a lot of Pell Grants and scholarships.
Did you apply for them and
then
do
my
all the
wife-
work?
Then my wife, I did. My mom helped some, but then my wife assumed a lot of my debt when I graduated, when we got married. So
Did she go to Lee too?
she did. She was the only one in her family that didn't go to UT, and she went to Lee, and I met her at Lee, and she's So.
When did y'all meet?
91.
Where's you at?
At Lee. Just I remember we ended up. I write songs, and so I wrote a song to be sang in chapel and asked her to sing
Why her?
with a group. Well, it was really.
It's the only move you had.
Well, yeah, there was 4 girls and 4 of us guys, and
Yeah.
so I said we can learn this song,
Yeah.
and then we'll get Dr. Malden to let us sing, and it worked, and that was our first kind of talking points, and then it led to a first date that led to and we dated for a while because I was still trying to figure out life, and she still had a ways in school because she was younger then. But yeah, so and thinking about those dreams and that vision board, that thing led to now we didn't have much of an endowment, and we've been trying to build it. And so my goal is to build at least $25 million endowment. We need that. Our club needs that for security for the future. And I don't want to hand it off to the next person and then not be healthy.
Say, man,
It
he
deserves
left us
too
in a
much.
pickle. You want to be... How do you create an endowment?
Well, we have
What even does that mean?
Well, we have an investment reserves account, and we have a capital/scholarship endowment. So every year, kids in our club, they can compete in a Youth of the Year competition, and then each county can vote for kids to get scholarships. So this past year, we gave $34,000 away to kids to go to school. So every year we'll give about that away. And that's to go to college. And then we know that some colleges free parts of it, but then, you know, how to get their books and their computer and all the other things that need, to get to go to school. And so we set up an account for that. So one of those endowments is for rainy day funds. If your ceiling caves in, we can try to get to that, because operation money is, money coming in and going out as fast as it's coming in and going out, right? Because you got to have something for, outside the box kind of stuff and needs. I mean, right now, I've got to buy 3 buses next year. I don't know where that's coming from yet.
How much is a bus?
About 100,000. So I'll have to come up with that. So it's stressful sometimes trying to do that, and that's because the service life is ending. I think it's 2 next year and 1 the following year. So there's that kind of stuff is always going on. So we have like a target of needs board and a target of vision and dreams. We talked about the Treehouse City. I want to do that. We want to build a pond. We want to build a performing arts center, because performing arts has been big in my world. I've loved music. I told you I wrote. And
what kind of music is your?
Well, I was in a band for about 12 years and traveled and did that.
What
and
kind
it was
of
funny
music?
because if you asked somebody outside of me, they would have called it funky punk country, because we were had a heavier tone of guitars.
Funky punk.
But I am a country voice, so you add all that together and it comes. But I like to write songs in all.
There's a guy in Polk County that does that too. Funky punk country. What's the one song? That's
a made-up term.
That's not really a genre,
It's
is it?
not. It's kind of.
It's almost like that group out of Nashville that sings "Howdy." You remember that song?
Yeah.
Howdy.
Yeah. So
That's.
Yeah, and some of ours, we had some harder in your face music, and then we had, especially through the 90s, my hair used to be down to here.
So you're talking about skateboarder music.
Yeah.
Basically.
So, but then as I've grown older, I've still liked to write. I wrote a song for my church recently, and then I still write a lot of country music, just because I hated country growing up. Hated it. But the idea that singer-songwriters could, in the country music, 47% of every country song was written from an outside person. In pop, you're writing your song and you're performing your song on most occasions. So I got into writing for other people too, because one time I'm going to work for Disney. I'm going to write songs for movies. So that's what I thought I was going to do. Yeah, and so I still like to write. My basement is a recording studio, and that's my man cave that I hide in sometimes when I want to escape.
I've been listening to Stevie Nicks this afternoon for about 2 hours. Boy, you forget how good she was. And she said that I watched her on an interview, she was hired by Waylon Jennings to write Leather and Lace. And he ended up not singing it, but she got Don Henley to help her with a few of the lines. So when Waylon Jennings didn't do it, she got Don Henley to sing it because he knew it, and it became famous.
Well, and you got to think, most songs, if I wrote a song, I may not be the best performer for that song.
You may not be. That's the bizarre thing about it. And if you're not playing the instruments, then it's all a collaboration. People say, "Well, you like what you built."
Well,
I didn't swing a hammer,
Well, I had a girl come up to me one time and she said, "Hey," she goes, "I want to do a little EP, but I don't have any songs." And I was like, "Okay, well, I like that challenge." And I was like, "Okay, so what you got?" And she said, "Well, I want a really sappy, heartbreaking song, and then I want a sassy girl song where she's like telling all the guys off." And I was thinking, okay, that is not anything of who I am as a person.
Right.
But it was kind of awesome. It was like writing little mini movies. And so you just kind of put yourself in somebody else's head and try to figure out what they would say.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I wrote a song called "Silly Me" that she wrote. Well, she sang. Yeah, and yeah.
So that's your hobby, I guess you'd
hobby,
say.
yeah. But it's bled into the club. I had a choir at the club. We used to go and sing at places, and we did a couple of albums. And some of those people have gone on to do some really good things. So it's kind of neat.
How do you keep all this straight in your head? Do you have a notepad or what?
I do. I have so many notepads. I've got Basecamp that I use that collects it in its final form. But I have a notepads that I walk everywhere with, and like quick ideas. I have things on my phone that I keep notes. I mean, just so you can kind of see that side of me, I'll show you this. This is, you ever seen the show Blue Bloods? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I started it calling Blue Blood Lessons. Mm-hmm. But now, if you can see this,
boy,
these are all little one-liner sayings that people have said. Well, it's no longer just Blue Bloods, but
right.
I've got it. But it's just anything. I mean, it could be just, it's something that I heard somebody say. And I'm
good thoughts.
It is.
Good memories.
Yeah. And so, and it's just, I'm trying to think if there's anything that was
It's got to
appropriate
be,
to what we
it's
were
got to,
saying.
you got so much going on, it's got to be overwhelming at times. You ever get to where sometimes you say, man, I just got to get away here for a few minutes.
Yeah. Sometimes I told Beth, my wife, earlier, I was like, I go through two things, purpose and escape. Purpose and escape. Purpose and escape. Listen to this one. It says, naive enough to start and stubborn enough not to quit.
That's me. Yeah.
But you know where I got that from?
Where?
Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid.
Yeah.
Boy, they had some good stuff on there. If it was real, I never could figure out if there was. I always think to myself, well, just ask the cameraman for a candy bar, you know.
And then it says, the Lord is the great author of our story, so let him write it. Mm-hmm. The House of David. That was that show. So it's just, and so anyway, I do that, but I also do that with like song ideas. And so some will be just normal. You think of a good comedian will take just a everyday thought.
Everyday's problem.
Everyday problem. Make it just hilarious.
It's showing you the reality. Mm-hmm. Have you ever noticed on those like sayings like that, it's bizarre to me. I hang around some people that could buy the county and others that don't have enough money to buy a cup of coffee.
Right.
So I'm a wide range of people. But it's funny to me how sometimes those people that you'll never suspect it will say such so profound of statements that you say, boy, if they were rich and said that, everybody'd follow them.
Yeah.
I had one of the guys that works for me, he's from Meigs County, actually. Doesn't have nothing, doesn't want nothing, and ain't gonna have nothing. It's not a problem.
Sure.
But I asked him one day, I said, hey, so-and-so, because I like to get his advice. He's pretty good. I said, do you think we're going to be able to do this? And I was serious. He said, yeah. And I said, well, why? He said, well, we've got to.
Hello.
That was it. That was it. There was no.
I think we can do it, because why?
No, he just said we got to.
Yeah, we got to.
It wasn't even, in other words,
there's no plan B.
The option was not even that we could die. We've got to. And that was so profound.
Well, Will Smith.
There was no option.
Well, Will Smith used to say the smartest thing you can do is not have a plan B.
Mm-hmm. Van Morrison wrote a song, No Plan B.
Yeah.
Did you ever sing any Van Morrison when you was in your music?
Some.
So if you weren't country, you were like I say, skateboard music. If you were that's a little bit older.
What's funny is I listen to absolutely everything.
I did too.
I mean, I'll listen to Sarah Bareilles, and I'll listen to Nat King Cole.
I've listened to all music, man. I'm
a
music carnivore, whatever you call it.
So there's a friend of mine. His name's Matt Paris, and usually late at night, I will stumble over some just well-written song, and then I'll blow his phone up with it, and he'll blow one back at me. You know, we don't even speak in the text. We It's understood.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
It's just like that's
Yeah,
all you're
yeah.
getting from me is you're gonna get this idea that I want you to mull it over. So
What, some songs you like to listen to,
yeah,
some you just like the beat, some you like how they make you feel, and then others you really like the message. And there's not many songs that give you all of those things, the messages and.
yeah. I was listening to the other day Zach Brown, that song. It's as free, free as we'll ever be. That song is such a cool song about taking you away, and
Takes me.
they're living out of their van and they're going out on the road, but the way it goes is good.
If you go to any Waffle House or any low-end diners, they will be playing that on the jukebox, and the waitresses will be singing it in sync.
Yeah.
I've never seen it not happen. They seem to love that song.
Yeah. And there's some people I just love their voices. I love Steve Perry's voice.
Oh, I do too.
And I used to love the Send Her My Love song. I mean, I liked all the songs, but for some reason that one I would be one of my favorite that they did.
I like the ones that really seem to have passion, and it's not necessarily. I was listening to Stevie Nicks and some of her early when she was just starting out. She really couldn't sing that good of a tune or whatever, but man, she sounded so great. Isn't that something?
Oh, yeah.
And even Hank Williams Sr., he couldn't hardly carry a tune.
Well, and that's the thing, too, especially if you're a singer-songwriter, different sometimes is better than good.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Being unique.
Look at Janis Joplin. I mean, you wouldn't put her in Lee College choir.
We talk to our kids all the time at the club about, listen, be good in your skin. I mean, be good in your skin because you are different than everybody else. And you being okay with that actually makes you attractive. Everybody wants to chase. They're like, man, I remember there was a girl at Lee, and she wasn't like a very attractive girl. She didn't have a lot of things going for her. She was a little on the heavy set side.
But she had it.
But her personality was she was so good with herself that everybody wanted to be in the room with her.
Oh, yeah. I've known people like that. That's where they say you just got it.
And it's a confidence thing. And we're always trying to go, okay, to a kid, if you think about it, if you could go back and talk to your 7th grade Dee.
Oh, I'd be president today. No questions.
And that's the feeling, like, because you know now what you didn't know then. And so we're always going, when we're having some just really mentoring time with kids, I love that. That coaching, teaching moment is like, listen, wake up. If you knew what I could tell you, if I could change your world and your outcome. By the time you're 20-something, you're going to be a different person. So quit just looking at Friday night and selling yourself short. There's so much more opportunity for you. And it feels good when somebody listens and then they practice what you told them, and then it works, and then they come back and they start building confidence and more confidence and more confidence.
You get it going, and it'll go on its own.
One of our Youth of the Year girls, she was sweet, very gullible, innocent, and she lived in a home where everybody was on top of each other. I think they had one bedroom in the whole place. And just did not have confidence. She was shy. She didn't speak.
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem.
Yep.
So fast forward, we got her in the Youth of the Year competition, and we started training her, and she failed, and we trained her, and she failed, and she got a little better, and then she failed, and she got a little better, and she got a little bit more confident. And then one day I'm talking, and Taco Bell across the world used her as their keynote speaker.
Golly.
Now you think about that. That same girl was on a track.
Only you knew the journey.
Yeah. And so you think about what that, and so those, and you got to think Mary Shin. I mean, she grew up here in Bradley County. She was in Bradley County schools, and then she became Youth of the Year, and she, had family struggles, and her brother's disabled, and she was trying to take care of that and work and do the things that she does. And she went on and went on, and man, she went on to work, and she became Youth of the Year for the Southeast region for Boys and Girls Club. So 10 states, over 1 million kids in competition. She won. She got to go to the White House. She got to sit behind the Oval Office. She sat at the desk. She went on to work in San Francisco. She likes to remind me she makes like 8 times what I make. she's amazing. When Chime, the Chime software come out and all the banking stuff, she was one of the main people.
Is that right?
It was a part of that. She's from here, She's in a consulting group now. She was training people
What's
for
her name?
MasterCard.
Can you say?
Mary Shin.
Shin.
Mary Shin. She just flew into town from San Francisco recently. She'd staying and finishing up her schooling in Chicago, and she come in
That's
just
a
to
success.
say hi.
That's maybe one of our biggest success stories.
Well, there's a bunch of those, and and just think, the same kind of thing. It was an opportunity, and then training along the way how to use that opportunity, and then it gets you to something big. And that's part of Youth Force when you think about some of the stuff they're doing with their podcasting skills. And I mean, in 2 weeks, so this is kind of cool. So we were doing video work and audio and video and TVs and all the things for and staging for some of the nonprofits in town. And our kids were setting it up and helping managing that. They helped do it at the chamber event last night. So that led to them doing more video work and then doing a STEM show where they ran the production for the STEM show. So then they started doing video editing. So Boys and Girls Clubs of America out of Atlanta, there's over 5,000 organizations, and they called us and said, do you think your kids would want to go when Helene had hit Western Carolina and follow the CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Jim Clark, and do a documentary of the relief efforts. So they did that. They showed it to the national all Boys and Girls Clubs. They had their, Cleveland, Tennessee Youth Force. Well, then, so they said, well, that was great. We're going to have you. We've never thought of that as a talent. We always have singers and dancers, but we never thought of that. So they had the national conference in San Diego in May. So they hired our kids, didn't really pay them, but you know what I mean. They hired them, they paid for their experience, which was incredible. And they flew them out to San Diego, and there was 3,000 in attendance. And then they did a Hall of Fame. So all these movie stars and famous basketball players was getting inducted in the Hall of Fame that grew up in the club. And our kids were the ones who did all the interviews and did all the sizzle reels for every general session. Because that went good, they asked them to go to Washington, D.C. when they were doing the Summit for America's Youth. And so our kids from town DJ'd that party and did all the video work for that, which led into, in 2 weeks, we go to New Orleans for the Southeast Southwest Conference for all this bottom part of the United States, and they're doing it again. So, except this time, one of our girls is singing, and all of the kids are doing the interviews of the guests and doing all the sizzle reels. How cool. Who knows where that'll lead?
Who knows?
They could be the next, movie producer.
The Boys and Girls Club has become and has got to become more in the progressive, that sort of stuff, more out of the sports, and because that's just the way our world is. Let me ask you this. I know we can talk about him because he won't be watching, I'm sure. But my good friend Ted Moss, I know he gave some money to the Boys and Girls Club.
He did.
But is it true that he has been given money to the runner-up?
Yeah, so we met Ted and Ann Moss, and as a part of our Youth of the Year program, Ann became one of our judges, and she was a good judge. She took it very serious. You have a big, thick, notebook. You talk about being organized. It's all in there, and she would read that front to back and get to know all those kids that are competing. Right? Well, there's always been a winner. There's usually a second, a first and second runner-up. Well, her and Ted started talking and decided that at the event, when they hear their speeches and stuff, they would be like, what about the ones that don't win? So this past year, every one of the people that competed, if you were to been watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette, and the ones that don't get picked, or Survivor, they got them in this little interview section. We did the interview section, and every one of them got a prize that was a cash for their work towards their school. And then our first and second runner-up got a cash amount. And really, Ted and Moss and Kay McDaniel was the ones who did that. They got
Well,
that
that's
money
really something, isn't it?
for the runner-ups.
That is something. He wouldn't tell me that, but I had just heard that, and I was just
He probably
curious.
mad that I mentioned it because he does it privately, but he was very good.
That is really something. What is the main thing the Boys and Girls Club needs? I mean, does the general public think that it's paid for by the
United Way.
by the city taxes, or who knows what they think? Where do they get the?
So, yes, they do. And this is always the hardest question to answer because, like for instance, there was a time when, our budget was much smaller and we were doing less. But a majority of our budget was coming from United Way, which has been great to us, still great to us. We love United Way. We love you guys. But we've outgrown what those resources were because we had opportunity to do other things. And we kind of just followed those trails of need to get us where we're at. And we're very good stewards and running with a very tight ship and we stretch a dollar better than anybody. Maybe that's the way to say it. But it is, I think I was talking to a guy this morning who was sitting beside me, and he was like, yeah, I know about y'all's annual event. And I was like, annual event? And he was like, yeah, your Cash for Kids, the one fundraiser you guys do. And I was like, we have 12 of those.
Yeah.
That's 1 out of 12. That just puts a dent in one little segment. And then we're also trying to generate money from grants. We're trying to generate money from foundations.
And you're setting up those 12 events.
Yeah.
That's a job, isn't it?
Hell yeah. And honestly, if I could have, in an ideal world, I'd build that endowment so we didn't have to do the events other than just the goodness of our heart to get you to know who we are and what's going on.
And stay focused on what you're
and
doing.
Stay focused on what we're doing. So individual giving, foundations, grants, and, and then our special events. All of that, it takes all of that. And our individual giving is where people just give and be a part of it. It's probably the most enjoyable part because somebody can join in and say, I want this to go to that. I've always wanted this. My childhood was missing that, and I want to see that. And then we can carry that dream out for them. But there's a lot of people that want to give on a daily basis or a monthly basis that don't have the ability to do all that. And we have a program called Everyday Heroes. And that's pretty cool because if they were like my mama and dad growing up and they wanted to do something, what Everyday Heroes means is a monthly reoccurring gift. That's it.
$5, $10,
If you're
$20.
Yeah, if you're a club champion, you give $1,000 or more one time a year, you're a club champion. And then there's different levels of being a champion. But then over here, there's an Everyday Hero. Everyday Hero just means that you're giving a monthly reoccurring gift. It could be $100, it could be $50, it could be $10, it could be $250.
You can count on this.
You can count on this, and they just have it reoccurring coming out. They're either sending it from their DAF or they're sending it from their credit card. They're doing it. Somehow they've set it up the way they want to set it up. So there's all these different avenues. And so those are what we need to continue doing what we can do. And we've had, I mentioned that ARC grant coming through, and that was a federal government grant where we put a bunch of energy behind to try to not overtax our community so we can do grander stuff, right? And building a building that those kids need there, right? And so how fragile is the government, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you got to think about that.
And so, what my job is to do is to tell the story, make sure people don't see us as a secret, make sure people understand the myths, because people don't realize that there's 150 staff and 17, 18 sites with a workforce and a camp and 3 bike tracks and you know, every month there's a big event going on somewhere, and they don't know that. I actually had a person one time look at me and my wife, and they said, y'all the only 2 there? And first of all, I was like, that's interesting. I said, but I'm blown away by that question for a couple of things. One, that you think I have the capacity for that.
Yeah, right.
I was like, thank you for that. 2 is, that means we haven't done a good job of telling the world what's going on, right? So, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's summer camps, and there's transportation, and there's trips.
What you need is
just took 40 to the University of Cincinnati, and they were on the field recognized and caught the footballs during the UCF Cincinnati game, right? And those boys will talk about that for the rest of their life, you know, and that's just one thing that happened last month. That wasn't even the main thing. I didn't even talk about it because it was.
Did you ever remember seeing the movie with the Dead Man Walking?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, if you ever watched that movie, that was, him and his sister were hungry, so he went to the convenience store to and stole a candy bar, but it happened to be a post office inside the convenience store, so they got him on a federal charge, and he was in prison his whole life.
That's crazy.
That's
sad.
It can get not that dramatic, but it's that serious, isn't it? What you're doing?
It's very serious. I mean, you're building. You know, you think about what you're doing every day. I'm looking at all these plans around here. You're building, right? And and what's awesome is you can look back on this when you're done and go, look what we accomplished. We built this structure. Well, my world's kind of like that. I mean, I don't know if you saw that, but like,
oh yeah, that's all.
This is building construction, right? Of things that that's needed. But even more than that, so if you can see that, you can see the pond.
Now this is at
the farm there.
This is the farm. That was what was gifted to y'all for.
Yeah, trying to get that balance. Yeah, that was. But to finish what I was saying is, we're in the process of building lives. And just like if you don't do the foundation right on your building can cave.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, it will cave.
If we're not intentional and one of us does something wrong with the kids, and we're not perfect, but if we do that or we take a shortcut, then the foundation of that kid's life is jacked up and it affects everything. Now, some of it's out of our control, but there's a lot of things that we can correct. When we witness there's a foundation issue in this kid's life, and we can come along and try to rebuild that so that they can be successful. I mean, because you think about, there's a report called the Harris Report that Boys and Girls Clubs of America put out a couple years ago, and it was, the club saved my life. And it was how many people actually said that. Like, literally, like, I'm not talking about fluffy stuff or just stat stuff. It was, this person said, the club saved my life. I mean, George Gray talks about it all the time.
I believe Chuck Swafford's told me the same thing or alluded to it.
Yeah, and when they say that, I mean,
or big help.
Bobby Green. I remember Lonnie Grooms. Lonnie Grooms came back to town recently, and he just dropped by the office and was talking, and he was a person that the Boys and Girls Club was a part of his life. He went on to be in the Hall of Fame in the state of Tennessee for the club, but what was interesting about it is he was like, I went to work in a factory, and the director came and stopped the factory line and said, you're leaving, you're going to college, and you're going to do something different with your life, and made him, and he was mad about it. And then it turned out to be the one thing that happened that is the turning point that he looks back every year and says, that day was when I went on this journey instead of that journey, and this journey was the reason I'm here today.
Do you think this is your religious mission, ultimately?
I do. I think that what's awesome is, like, we have great kids, great parents, you know, great environment. But it's kind of like if you had a flashlight and if you walked and turned all the lights on in here or walked outside with a flashlight, that flashlight doesn't seem as bright. But if you turn all the lights off in here, then that flashlight is like, wow, how bright that flashlight is. It'll blind you when it hits you in the eyes. I think sometimes when you're in a place that needs you, your light's brighter. Your efforts are bigger. And I think that's why some people like Doughball and Steve.
Dan Howe. Ted Moss.
All these people have, Ed Jacobs, have done so much because they witnessed the difference in their flashlight, right? It made a difference. So I think for me, it is that, because I talk church for a second. I remember one time when my friends who were pastors was talking about the church and all the things that, they were trying, nearly on a witch hunt, looking for the people who need them. And I'm like, pfft. And they're like, what? And I was like, I had 2 Satanists in my back seat trying to take them to their mama the other day. Just because they were like,
here's the
hey, Mr. Derrick.
Yeah.
It was just there. There's just kids trying to find themselves, just identity issues, and I actually, that one kid that was in the back seat that time, I used him to be a special speaker 10 years after that, because his life finally, the seeds that were planted in his life then, you don't know. We think sometimes it's a hopeless case, and then God does something great with the seed that you planted. And then 10 years later, when you didn't even realize it, and then they come out, we had a kid come, this was great. There was a kid, now we want to reach them all. Every now and then you'll get a hard case, and you'll think, I don't think this kid can be reached. I think they're a hopeless case or too far gone. So this kid comes to the club, and he is really causing more problems. We don't get rid of anybody. This kid just had to be redirected out the doors. And that was because he was doing things that were against our mission on a grand scale. But we were constantly in his ears trying. And he was pushing back and doing everything against everything, right? Every belief, every policy, you name it. And then he kind of disappeared. And then about 5 years later, a gentleman wants a tour. He's in his full Navy officer uniform. And short hair, come through the building, and our team guy was, touring him, and he said, finally, after about halfway through the tour, he had this big smirk on his face, and he said, you don't know who I am, did you? And then finally, he was kind of looking beyond all that, and was like, I'll just make up a name for the sake of that. Steve, is that you? And he said, yeah, it's me. He was like, what? And he had a big tear come down his face. And he said, I can't, you're going to have to tell me what happened. He said, first of all, you need to know that we're always listening. Your words weren't in vain. I was going through a time where I was trying to find myself and causing more problems than good, but I listened to everything you ever said. It just wasn't until later that the light come on, and I did something. And I think they both sat there and cried, because it was meaningful for both of those. Well, I had one that was very weird one time, and it kind of shook my world, but this kid had gone through a bad situation where he'd lost his family, and he was causing troubles because he was, he was getting in trouble. He was in and out of foster care, and most of the time you want to coddle that and just love on it. Well, I was about spent with his attitude, and I remember coming in my office one day, and I just let him have it, just like I would with any kid that I had a relationship with. But it was out of love. But I was like, you got to stop feeling sorry for yourself. If you can't just go through life expecting things to be, you got a raw deal. You got a bad hand. You drew a bad hand, but it is the hand that you've got, and you better start doing something with it, or you're going to be in jail, and you got to fix it. And then I see him in my office. I get a phone call 3 years later, and Channel 9 News is interviewing some kid or some adult in Coolidge Park. And somebody says, you got to turn on the TV. And I was looking, and this kid is talking about me. And he goes, I was in this office. This guy told me, Mr. Derrick told me to stop feeling sorry for myself. And it, it shook me because what I did in the moment, nearly out of emotion, could have been taken bad, right? And I could have, driven on my way. But God used it for
well, and
good.
you had tried everything else.
We had another kid that was the same thing. Nonchalantly, we had this kid that was coming to the club. His parents, he was living in California, upper middle class family. They went to get a puppy. There was a car accident. When he woke up in the hospital, everybody was deceased.
Golly.
And he had a mentally handicapped dad, disabled, not terrible, but so he got moved from that world, and they just landed in Cleveland in the housing authority. And he came across to the club on day one, and he was quiet. He was probably about 10 or 11 at the time, and there was a camp. Somebody called me and said, hey, I got this one opening for a camp. So I called the director and said, hey, you want to see if there's anybody that wants to go to that camp? And he goes, I'm going to check with that kid. It's, he's just gotten here and stuff. So long story short, kid goes to camp. So fast forward, his senior year, he calls me and he says, hey, can you read this essay for me? Because it's going to be judged and I need, once again, he was in our life from that day till his senior year, still in our life. He came and visited me recently. But he said, I want you to read over this, make sure my verbiage and stuff are good. Man, I read that. I called Brian Lessick. I don't know if you knew Brian. Brian was running the unit at that time, and I was like, and we both cried. And you know why? Because in his essay, he said all this had happened, and he laid out what he was going to do to take his life. That week, he was actually going to plan for it like early that week, and he had it exactly what he was going to do. But we invited him to that camp nonchalantly. And it was the thing that was the turning point in his life to try to go to the next week, And then he ended up at Lee and then the military. Now he's an air traffic controller. And he was talking about it in that thing about that was the turning point that did it for me. And he never missed a day at the club. The club bought his clothes for his competitions in school and stuff. We had another kid that, there's a million. I don't want to take up too much time doing that because I'll talk till the end of the week. But
you have to add those good ones in for the sad ones, don't you?
Yeah, and it is a good one.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, he's successful now, and he's doing great now. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, you want to catch them all. After you catch one or two, it's like if you play golf and you got a hole in one, you're like, I may stink, but I can do it, and you'll do it every time because you'll be like, I'm hitting it again. I'm going golfing because there's a chance I can catch that fish on that fly rod, or I can get that hole in one. And it's the same kind of feeling. Once you get that, it's kind of like dreaming all this stuff. We're talking about all this. I mean, that Performing Arts Center, that could generate the next big singer or the next big, someone. And we have a kid right now that's on a scholarship that had nothing, nothing. But now he's in college on a scholarship for music because there was a passion there that he had, but he didn't know how to drive it. He didn't know how to, what do you do with this raw talent that I've got?
Yeah.
So it is kind of like that. So I think it's fun to dream because you're like, man, you could have this tree houses and cabins. It'd be fun for that experience for just being out or fishing.
If they hadn't have dreamed, then you'd still had that football field behind the boys' club, and if it wouldn't have had the addition, it'd be the exact same way. Yeah. So you have to be progressive.
Well, and even now we still do the football on that field, and we got a place
you have to. If somebody didn't have even the Max Everharts didn't help to renovate it and expand it. I mean, it takes a village.
It does take a village, and that's why the older I get, I've never wanted to be a used car salesman in the sense of people see me coming and go, there's Derrick, he's going to ask me for something. But the older I get and the more I've seen accomplished, I don't apologize anymore. There's too many needs out there, and there's too many awesome things. And why would I cheat you? You could have the opportunity to. It feels good to do good. It feels good to give. And if I took that away from you because I didn't want to offend you, then you miss out. You got the right to tell no. You can tell me no. I'm okay with no. I'm a big boy. I've been told no a lot. But there's somebody out there that has the ability to do a lot more, and maybe they just don't know what avenue to do that in.
Right.
And all I want to do is go, here's the gap and the need and the desire and the something, and you could change the game for somebody. It may not be your thing, but it may be. And don't miss it because you didn't know about it. And I don't want to be the one that's guilty of not telling you about it, because I don't want to cheat you that way.
If Ted Moss gives, it's worthy. How's that?
Yeah, sure.
You ought to run that. Ted Moss.
That'll be our bumper
Yeah,
sticker.
but Ted Moss gave.
So what about you? Which is great. And we're grateful for our Teds and our Eds and and all the people who really help. And we're grateful for United Way. They give us their largest gift comes, from United Way.
Yeah, that lady that runs that now, she really.
Stephanie is awesome.
Stephanie Linkus, right?
And we met her when she was in the McMinn Meggs area because she is the reason that we have money coming into Meggs unit, Stephanie. And that was her. She did that. So she's a rock star.
She's really smart. Really smart.
Yeah, she intimidates me. Smart women.
Yeah.
They just...
All I can say is I'm glad people like you are out there.
I'm glad people like you are out there.
Well, I'm a dime a dozen. You're not.
Mm.